And welcome, MAGA Patriots. One question I have for everybody today. Are we finally ready to all get in the fight to save the country today? Not tomorrow, not next week after we all devour the Christmas fruitcake that Annie Rose sent from New York. Not after New Year's, but today. Today. Are we going to continually sit by week after week, month after month, year after year, while our country is destroyed by these communist hordes that seek to destroy our country and mock our traditions, our values, and everything we hold dear in this country? Well, I say not today, not on my damn watch, and I'm looking for every patriot to join me. I want to welcome everybody to the first show that we will call Talkin MAGA. I am your host, MAGA Mike. And before I get into what we're going to cover on the show today, I want to go over exactly why we decided to do the show and get it out in front of everybody. You know, and everywhere I go in the country, and everybody I speak to, because I'm from New York, but I live in the South now, everybody says to me, MAGA, MAGA, the country is a mess. What is going on? Because they look at the news and they see what's going on in the country. They look at the border wide open and we're just like, come on in, free healthcare, free this. And it's like, are you kidding? They look at the gender insanity and we're mutilating and sexualizing children. They look at the economy, inflation, at unsustainable rates. They look at foreign policy of just, the Ukraine BS, funneling billions of dollars, quote, money laundering billions of dollars to a foreign war that we have no business being involved in. We would constantly, every decision that they made, including all of those, and of course the last couple of years with the scamdemic, I'm going to get into that. Every decision this administration and leftists take, it's almost like they're doing the opposite of what's really best for the country, for the United States of America. And people are just like amazed. But you turn on the Communist News Network or MSDNC or look at an article online from the New York Slimes or the Washington Compost, and all they want to talk about is January 6th and how Republicans are a threat to our democracy, or we must endeavor to save our democracy. And a pet peeve of mine is I scream at the TV to the dismay of my lovely wife. I want to say, hey, idiots, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. But they don't know that because they're $250,000 useless degrees from Wesleyan. They've never picked up a history book and know that we live in a constitutional republic and not a democracy. Well, what is a democracy? Democracy is basically mob rule. Two foxes and a hen deciding what's for dinner, that's a democracy. It's not going to be the chicken. Okay, I tell you that. So we don't have that. And the founding fathers knew that mob rule could not be the way. We needed to have a representative constitutional republic. Okay, so Ben Franklin had the greatest line with this. And I'm going to show you a clip or listen to a clip if you're listening to the podcast online of Tom Wilkinson, who portrayed Ben Franklin in the great miniseries John Adams. And if you haven't seen it, it's a fantastic, I think it's a 4 or 5 part miniseries upon the life of Adams and the founding of the country. I highly recommend it. I think it was produced by HBO. I don't know who's got it now, but look it up. You'd love it. But I want to show you that clip because he knew how difficult it would be. They knew. So I'm going to show you this clip and then we could talk about it.
It is no small thing to build a new world, gentlemen.
No, it's not.
We have our republic. We must endeavor to keep it, if we can.
Now, what's fascinating about that clip is Franklin knew, and Jefferson and Adams and all of the great founding fathers who put the Constitution together knew that that was a novel idea. It was not the norm at the time. A monarchy, a dictatorship, or whatever it was, these quasi-democracies that really, were rigged anyway. But a self-governing people was not only going to be easy, it was not only going to be hard to attain, it was going to be hard to maintain. He knew that the temptation of the people in power to swill at the public trough or to suck at the teat of the American taxpayer, all that money flowing through there and the power and corruption that comes with it was going to be very hard and to resist that temptation. So they were very, very wise beyond their years, and they knew that it was going to be hard, and that all of these swamp dwellers and these power corrupt, people were going to try to paint anybody who didn't want power held by few people. They were going to paint us with a brush and disparage us and call us names, racist, insurrectionists, and the like. But we have to push back against this federal Leviathan, and that's what the podcast is going to be, give you concrete steps on how we can do that together as freedom-loving patriots. There have been many great freedom-loving patriots before me that espoused the beliefs that I'm going to share with you guys on this show, and really influence my life and my worldview. And I want to share two of them with you that I hope influence your life as well. I think if you're watching it, they might have. And the first one, of course, is my personal hero, the late, great Rush Limbaugh, who we just lost, last year. Devastating that we lost his voice at the time we really needed it. But I want to tell you a quick steal line from Andrew Cuomo, the ex-governor of New York, who I really couldn't stand, but he was quite entertaining. He would always say, short story, quick story. So quick story here. My folks got divorced when I was 12, and my dad moved to Florida soon thereafter. So I really didn't have a male influence in my formative years growing up. When I was 12, I had to get a paper out and, rake leaves and mow lawns to help with the expenses. And I'm not saying that to say how great I was at a 12-year-old. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to play video games and play sports with my buddies outside, but you have to do what you have to do. So I was really busy in my teenage years playing sports and doing that stuff. I think created, this work ethic, self-responsibility mentality. And then when I went to college in the late 80s and Rush came on the radio, I remember vividly, day after day after day, getting out of class, I think at 11:50, running out of accounting class, grabbing the quickest sandwich I can in the cafeteria, running to my car, a 1980 Chevy yellow Monza. Not a Mazda, a Monza. Probably didn't even know that. Barely ran. I would pray in the upstate New York cold winters that it would always turn on and at least heat the car so I could have my sandwich and be there at 12:06 to listen to Rush's monologue. It was a part of my everyday that I did, that I, expanded all throughout my life until Rush's passing last year. So I'd run in at 12:06 and, just to bring you back to memory lane, I would run into the car, turn it on, have the sandwich ready, and 12:06, all would be right in the world because I would hear this. I mean, the man was a legend. Even people that didn't agree with his politics have to agree that the man was a gifted orator, he was a gifted communicator, and a gifted entertainer. And he had a way of just influencing. And so Rush had a tremendous influence in my upbringing and, my worldview. So we miss him dearly, like I said, at a time where we need him most. He is greatly missed, and I miss him every day, to be honest, like he's a family member of mine. The other great patriot that really influenced me growing up was as badass an enemy of the left that they could ever want. They did not want to see this guy coming. They feared him like you couldn't imagine. And he coined the phrase, walk towards the fire. Don't worry about what they call you. And of course, that quote is from the late, great Andrew Breitbart, another patriot that we lost way too early at a time where we really needed his voice. But what Andrew taught me and what he taught millions of others is never back down to these people. They smell fear like a shark smells blood in the water. So never back down to them. And the greatest clip that I keep on my phone all the time, and I watch almost weekly, of Andrew, because it just inspires me so much to stay in this fight. I want to show you this little clip, and then we could talk about it.
all the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist? You're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs? Fuck you. War.
That smug look on his face when he says war, they knew that, oh my God, this guy is not backing down. Okay, we can't cow him like we have every other pathetic rhino Republican in the past, or media personality that, like the George Wills of the world and, the other cucks like him. So Andrew taught us to fight. And Dana Lash, another great podcaster and host, conservative host, coined the phrase that's right in Andrew's wheelhouse: never bend a knee to the rage mob. And we will not. I'm no Rush Limbaugh. I'm no Andrew Breitbart. So my little sliver of the world, I will never bend a knee to these people. I will not. And if I could influence a handful of people just by doing this podcast, I feel like I've done something. So let's band together. Let's fight these people moving forward, taking our country back, okay, and never bending a knee. So I want to get as many freedom-loving patriots to join me, and let's do it together. So we're going to be talking about things that are best for the country, issues that MAGA world, Make America Great, and patriots, find important in their lives and their families' lives. So I think it's important, before we get into the topics, we define what is MAGA. And it's amazing that, President Trump came down the escalator, 7 years ago now, and he coined the term Make America Great Again. He wasn't the first person to have that term. Reagan actually used it, briefly in his 1980 campaign, I believe. But President Trump was the first one to mainstream it, make it, the centerpiece of his campaign, and he gets a ton of credit for that. So I think we have to determine, first, before we do that, what is MAGA? Okay, Make America Great Again. And so people ask me, hey, MAGA, what does MAGA mean? And I define it simply as MAGA means put America first. The representatives that we elect to represent us, the American citizens, should put our interests first. If you watch the Democrats, in Congress over the past year or two, you would think they are elected by Ukrainian citizens. We will stand with Ukraine and we will be with Ukraine forever. How about standing with America first? And we can't ask a question like, why are we sending billions of dollars to this country that really, 2 years ago, nobody could stand? Okay. Now, all of a sudden, this Zelensky character, actor, comedian, whatever he is, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't buy it. Okay. It's not putting America first. Is having the border wide open to South America and the half of the rest of the third world, is that putting America first? No, it's not. Are we allowed to answer the question, is having the border wide open, is that in the best interest of America? No. America first should be the first, second, third question, last question we ask for when we determine any policy, when we spend a penny of the taxpayer money. Is this in the best interest of America? Okay. Why do we fund NATO when all the other countries don't? Is it our responsibility to protect the world? Why don't they protect their own world? Why isn't Europe protecting Ukraine? Okay. Why are we giving billions of dollars in financial aid to countries that hate us? If I showed you guys, and I think I will in one of the episodes, how many billions of dollars we sent to other countries with really no benefit to Americans, you'd be amazed. You'd be sickened. I'm sickened. I vomit every day, when I see how much money is spent, that really is not for America. Why do we get screwed on trade? Why are our trade policies not dictated by what's best for America? I don't know. Okay. Why do we let China, abuse us 9 ways to Sunday with these stupid climate agreements that we're held to all these standards, to hurt our economy and hurt our people, but India and China aren't? That's not America first. We're signing on to things that are benefiting other countries and not Americans. Okay. Why can't we secure our own border? Every other country in the world secures their border. We're securing Ukraine's border, for Christ's sake, but we can't secure our own border? It's insanity. That's not America first. And I could go on countless other arguments about America first and whatnot, but MAGA is simply that, putting interest of Americans first and not last, not second, not third, not fourth, but first. And that simply is MAGA in a nutshell. So that sounds pretty simple, right? And my wife and other people say to me, like, MAGA, why don't the Democrats or the people on the left, why wouldn't they want MAGA? Why wouldn't they want what's great for America? Well, the simple answer to that is the people in power, and not just the left, but even the people on the right, why they don't like MAGA is because it threatens the very existence of the most important thing for them. Yeah, I call it the DC grift, the money laundering operation, whatever they do, because think about this. $5 trillion runs through the federal government every year. That is an inconceivable amount of money. Try putting that in your calculator. $5 trillion. I have to do it on an Excel spreadsheet. I'm a CPA, and that's an inconceivable number to me, how much money that is. Regular people that are just running around that don't deal with money or numbers, it's an unfathomable amount of money. Okay, so that amount of money to the people in power, the temptation is too great not to grift, to money launder, to outright steal that damn money for their benefit. And they do it in very subtle ways that regular people would not even understand. Like the Ukraine thing. There's no way that $100 billion is going to Ukraine and it's not winding back to the politicians that supported that money through their virtue signaling BS. We have to stand with freedom for Ukraine. They don't give a crap about Ukraine, okay? They're getting that money and they're getting something back. It may not be a direct payment. It may be a job, a position, a contract, whatever it is that's funneling back to either them directly, their family members, their business associates. They're getting something for that. The Biden crime family is the greatest example of this. This guy has been a loser congressman and senator before he was installed as VP and president. He is worth, what, $100 million? His wife was a school teacher, for Christ's sake. He's from Delaware. How is this guy worth, that much money with no talent other than to get elected to public office and lie to people? And they call me Lunch Pail Joe. Nobody calls you that, you brain-pudding, demented idiot. Nobody, okay? You're a DC grift scumbag that steals from the taxpayer his whole life, and you've perfected it with your degenerate family, okay? So the MAGA movement is a direct assault because they know we know what their game is. They know we have their number, and they're petrified if it is ever exposed that they really couldn't care less about the country. All they care about is their grift, their power, their money, how they can launder the money through the federal treasury to keep them with that money and in power. That's all they care about. So I thought it was important to address that concern. Is, Mike, why wouldn't everybody want MAGA? Well, the people in government who control the money supply and whatnot, they know that that's a direct assault on their DC grift machine money laundering operation. So let's move forward and go over exactly what we're going to cover on the show. So let's go over exactly what we're going to cover on the show, Talkin MAGA. Most things will fall into one of these few categories. We may stray a little, but mostly here. And the one is the media. Obviously, we're going to hold the despicable mainstream media to account for their lies, agenda, and biased. President Trump coined the term that the media was the enemy of the people, and he couldn't have been more right. Years past, their bias and agenda was much more subtle, and they tried to appear to be objective journalists with that cloak of objectivity, which was an absolute charade. But now they might as well, carry blue pom-poms with DNC armbands, for Christ's sake, because their mask is off, the Band-Aid is ripped off, exposed raw for everybody to see. They couldn't care less to even be perceived as objective anymore. They know their team. As long as they take care of their team, they're going to be protected. Their paychecks will keep coming, their access, their power, their influence, the cocktail party invitations, they'll keep streaming in. So that's all they care about. So they don't even care to be journalists anymore. And the useless degrees they get, from Wesleyan and all these ridiculous colleges that sell ridiculous, education, it doesn't matter because they're on the team. Once they get on the team, that's all they care about. So I want to bring you down memory lane as far as when the first I saw the media bias, and then we'll talk about it. There's a clip from 1980 presidential debate between Carter and Reagan, and I just want to show you this, and then we'll talk about it.
Governor Reagan, again, typically is against such a proposal.
Governor, there you go again. When I opposed Medicare, there was another piece of legislation meeting the same problem before the Congress.
Reagan was just fantastic, and he had a way of, disarming people, totally different how Trump did it, both effective, but, different styles. So Reagan, knew how to do that. But what I found amazing when I watched that as an 11-year-old kid, I'm watching that, and it was my first, kind of exposure to, politics, on a national level. And I'm watching, and I said to my dad, I said, Dad, I go, it seems like the moderator, who's doing the debate is on Carter's side. Is that because he's the president and whatnot? And my father said to me, no, Mikey, he goes, they just all hate Reagan. So I didn't ask questions. I'm an 11-year-old kid. I mean, literally, I walked into the house playing stickball 10 minutes early. I had no clue. I was just watching this. But I said to myself, I go, why would, the media people want to hate Reagan? Why would they hate a guy that wants to make the country great, that wants to give more freedom to the people and less power from the government? It's because they're on team government. Okay, it's because the media is not the media. They're an arm of the state. They're an arm of the left in this country. And it's tragic the way it goes, but we're going to hold them to account. There's a lot of people doing it, but I'm going to try to do it at a different approach and really, hold them to, expose them for what they really are, which is, in my opinion, and I agree with President Trump, they are the enemy of the people. Another thing we're obviously going to cover on the podcast Talkin MAGA is the lunacy of the left. And there are a ton of people that do a great job of this online, and have their whole social media platforms dedicated to this. Jesse Kelly does a great job of it. Mark Dice is fantastic at this. Libs of TikTok is a more recent one that basically just exposes the lunacy of the left by putting their own words and videos online for everybody to see. And she's a threat to their safety because she puts their own words out there for people to see. Amazing hypocrisy. So we're going to talk about, the blue-haired nose ring, and yes, always the nose rings, okay? Nose ring freaks, teachers that are educating your children. Not my children, thank God, but a lot of children in this country are being educated by these freaks. Soy boy, testosterone, deprived, cucks out there crying, to ingratiate themselves with the left. We'll expose those people like the Adam Kinzingers of the world and whatnot. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, men dressing up as women to beat them in sports. I mean, how lunacy is that? That this has gone on in this country. We're mutilating children, for Christ's sakes, and the lunatic lefts think it's for their safety. This gender-affirming surgery. I've never heard of the term gender-affirming surgery. My father, I said, Dad, I need to be affirmed. He'd slap me and throw me outside for the day. Got to be kidding me. Where has this country gone? So we're going to expose a lot of this. And how could you not look at politics today without exposing the lunacy left? And we're going to do that. We're going to have fun doing it. Try to do it from a little different angle than everybody else does it. So keep it fresh, interesting, and fun. So the last topic that we're really going to have as a main category on the show, Talkin MAGA, is by far and away my most passionate topic. And it is really government power, corruption, and everything that falls under that. And I touched on it earlier about the DC grift and the skim money laundering operation, and told you that $5 trillion is running through the federal government. if I had to ask you how many people work for the federal government, and I've asked that question to a lot of people, and people say, I don't know, 300,000, 500,000 and whatnot. Over 4 million people work for the federal government. Okay, 4 million people. Can you imagine the waste, fraud, and abuse that goes on in our federal government? $5 trillion, 4 million people, all with their hands in that pie. Just amazing, okay? And both sides grift with laser-like precision. It's not just the left, which obviously does it a lot. The right does it too. I mean, McConnell with China and all those people, there probably are very few politicians in DC on either side of the equation that don't engage in it to some extent or the other. I think the left is a master at it. I think, they are the most corrupt and abusive of the system out of everybody, but they both do it. And that's why the MAGA movement wants to expose both parties for this grift, this skim, this money laundering operation that is DC. And of course, the Ukraine thing is the greatest example of it. Both sides, running up to the podium like puppies, pledging their allegiance to this comedian president in charge of over there, who's basically shaking the whole country down for hundreds of billions of dollars. Okay, it's insane. None of that money is benefiting any citizen. The border wide open. There's a reason the border is wide open. Who is benefiting from the border being wide open? We're going to talk about that. The next big topic in this corruption thing is a real pet peeve of mine, is Big Pharma, and how Big Pharma and all the health alphabet agencies are working hand in glove, to skim and make billions off the taxpayer. And this scamdemic, this COVID scandemic, was the greatest abuse that I've ever seen. And the COVID thing is the thing that has annoyed me the most, probably in the last 20 years. And it wasn't so much the abuse and the allegiance that the government officials had to Big Pharma because they fund their campaigns and they turn about, and give money to Big Pharma. And I mean, can you imagine if you had a product to sell and it wasn't that good of a product, it really didn't work, but you got the government to mandate everybody in the country buy your product? You don't think there's any corruption going on in there? And it wasn't that, that there was corruption there, which I think any, person that has any intelligence could figure out. But it was the apathy, the lack of interest of everybody in the country, how everybody just laid down and said to the government, okay, yeah, give me the shot. Yeah, it's for my safety. They knew it wasn't for your safety. It was all part of this money laundering operation and this abuse of power that the government said. So what the podcast is going to be about is I want to make sure everybody, as much as I can, inform people to make sure that something like that never happens again. Or if they try it, there will be much more pushback because more people will be informed of this obscene government corruption and abuse. Okay, so this topic to me is my pet project, where all this money is going for, how much money people are making from the federal government, how they use it to abuse, to enrich themselves, and strip Americans of our fundamental freedoms and rights. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to do a whole episode on the scamdemic and all the different pieces about the masks, the vaccine, the death counts, everything. I mean, Alex Berenson, who is not a conservative, I just did the best reporting on this. He was banned from Twitter, when he before Musk took over. Obviously, he's been reinstated. He actually sued Twitter and won. He was reinstated even before Musk took over. So they know that people are on to their grift, into their scam. So the more we have to do, everyday Americans like myself and you guys, to expose and try to put some sort of halt or stop to this government waste, fraud, and abuse, that is going to be for the betterment of the country. And that's what the MAGA movement is really about. So these are the topics that I'm really going to cover on the show. I think we're going to have a ton of fun, a lot of clips we're going to play. We're going to laugh. We're going to get pissed. We're going to have fun, and we're going to have a bunch of guests. I think I'm going to have Ed Henry, the ex-Fox and Friends host, on shortly. We're going to have him on for a whole episode and talk about his perspective of the media and what it was like at Fox when he was there, and obviously since then. So we're going to have a lot of good guests. We're going to bring on guests to talk about really deep topics. So I hope you're going to enjoy all the topics that we choose. If you have any suggestions for a topic that you want, please message me, on the YouTube videos, in the comment section below, or at mike@talkinmaga.com. So that's what we're going to do, and I think you're going to enjoy it, and I look forward to bringing you guys all this stuff, and I'm really going to have fun with it, and hope it's going to be a great show for you guys to enjoy. So that's what we're going to be covering on the podcast. So I wanted to keep this first episode brief at around 30 minutes, and it's looking like the clock on the wall is making the call that it's time to wrap up for today. Episode 1 of the Talkin MAGA podcast is in the books. So I want to remind everybody that's watching or listening to the podcast that it is time to get in the game. Waiting on the sidelines, watching from the cheap seats, that is over. We need everybody engaged. It's an all-hands-on-deck battle to save the country from the forces of the lunatics that seek to destroy us. They hate our way of life, the American way of life. They want us cowed. They want you afraid. That's how they win. But they go down in flames if we all stand together, unabashed, unafraid, screaming for what we believe in. Proudly, what do we believe in? Freedom, liberty, America first. Nothing to be ashamed of. Scream that from the rooftops, okay? Remember what Andrew Breitbart said. Walk towards the fire. Don't be afraid of what they call you. That's how we're going to win and get this country back to its bearings and its foundings and our traditions and principles. So, in closing, this is MAGA Mike signing off. First episode of Talkin MAGA is in the books. Until next time, we'll be talking MAGA, MAGA on Patriots.